Welcome to the Body Ally podcast. Hi, sisters. In this podcast, this is where we learn how to stop battling with our bodies and with food from a faith-based approach. We learn instead how to be an ally with our bodies, partnering with our bodies and accepting them as the gift that God intended. Learning how to pursue health goals, not in an effort to prove value, but as an act of love. And I am your host, Carrie Nygaard. Today, we're going to get into how to solve for emotional eating. What is actually at the core of emotional eating? You know, with my group of faith-based women that I work with, I'm not teaching them how to be in control with food. I'm solving for the root issues that are causing the out of control behaviors with food. And when we solve for that, by partnering with our body, by learning to manage our lower brains, we're able to come to a place where we can make food choices simply because we like our reason for making it, where food actually is just a choice, not a moral implication, not a signal of our goodness or badness, but simply as a food choice. I tell those that I work with, does the choice that you're trying to make with food, does it feel like more than just a choice? Does it feel like a heavy does it seem to carry a lot of heavy meaning if you should eat or not eat this thing? Then you are actually in survival response, that you are in diet mentality, that you are still assigning meaning to yourself based upon the food that you do and do not eat. Something we need to be really clear about is that our value is assigned by our Creator, and that we do not have the power to food does not have the power to make us more or less worthy. Some people say, well, what about gluttony, Carrie? And I'm like, feeling out of control with food because of diet mentality, survival responses being flipped. I talked about that in episode 2. So go listen to episode 2 where I talk about when you have obsessive thinking about food, when you have mental food chatter, when you have out of control behaviors around food, a general mistrust of yourself around food. It's and if you've dieted in the past, it's more than likely a response to your survival responses, your hardwired survival responses being flipped. And today I'm going to get into the emotional aspect. If you stress eat, if you emotional eat, where is that coming from? Why does that occur? And it's not because you're weak. It's not because you're lacking willpower or motivation. The thing with willpower and motivation is that they're not dependable. You don't know when they're going to show up or for how long they're going to be around. So let's actually solve for the root problem. So what is the purpose of food in our life? The purpose of food is to give us nourishment and energy. And when do we actually eat? Well, when we're actually hungry, okay? But what if we're having not true physical hunger? What if we're having more of an emotional hunger? What if we're feeling an urge to eat and it's coming from an unmet need, or because we're feeling an uncomfortable emotion because we don't have the capacity to know what to do with our emotions? That's what I'm going to get into today. So first, I'm going to go through something that I call a need, the need assessment, meaning how do I know what I really need if I'm eating and not hungry? I'm going to go through that. And then I'm also going to give you 3 specific examples of how this can come up, maybe a bonus fourth. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let me get a little drink of water here first. Okay, so when you have a food urge and you aren't actually hungry, this is where we want to lean in and get curious. What do I want from food? What is it that I'm hoping the food will leave me feeling? What do I want the food to create for me? And here's the real question. What do I actually need? Okay. So the first one, and this is the way you can remember this, is an acronym, just NEED, N-E-E-D. So what do I actually need? N stands for nervous system regulation. So oftentimes what happens is that a woman will get overstimulated or overworked or overly tired. And all of this is just nervous system dysregulation. And when this occurs, a woman will go to food, or you'll feel food urges. Your brain will send you food urges to try to regulate your nervous system. And in these situations, you're seeking relief, safety, comfort, maybe an escape from the difficulties of life. You're seeking calm and control. So there's nothing wrong with you for seeking these things. These a regulated nervous system is something that all brains are going to try to create for you. But instead of going to food to try to regulate your nervous system, because here's the thing, anytime we eat, there is a dopamine response. And dopamine is what they call a feel-good hormone or a pleasure hormone because it gives a sense of well-being. But here's what's really interesting is that the anticipation of eating the food actually releases more dopamine than the actual eating of the food. This has been kind of a newer study that's come out, is that it's the anticipation of the thing that seems to be even more rewarding than the actual thing. And have you ever noticed this, where the eating of the thing doesn't quite hit the spot, but you sure enjoyed looking forward to it, and so then you go on and you try to eat something else, trying to get that need filled, but nope, that doesn't quite hit the spot. So then you go to find something, it's called emotion chasing food. Will this make me feel the way I want to feel? Nope. Will that make me feel the way they feel? Going from sweet to salty, salty to sweet, back and forth. So what's going on here is that instead of going to food, what I want you to do is I want you to actually regulate your nervous system. And this can be done manually and it can be done preemptively. By stimulating your vagus nerve, anytime you well, first let me tell you what your vagus nerve is. You have two different sides to your nervous system, or your autonomic nervous system, your ANS. There's the parasympathetic side of your nervous system, and then there's the sympathetic side of your nervous system. The sympathetic side is the active, alert side of your nervous system. The parasympathetic side of your nervous system is the rest, digest, safety side of your nervous system. If you are constantly activated, or if you're overly activated and your nervous system kind of gives out and then you're chronically deactivated, the issue isn't one side or the other. What you want to have is something called vagal tone, is what they call vagal tone is when you're able to move from one side of your nervous system to the other according to the need that's going on in your life, and to move back, that you're not getting stuck or being hypervigilant in one side or the other. We want to be able to move from one to the other. That's called vagal tone. So the way that you can stimulate, if you're active, if you're amped up and you can't seem to de-amp yourself, if you can't seem to calm down, then you want to be able to manually go in and calm your nervous system. And this is done specifically by stimulating the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the largest nerve that's part of the parasympathetic side of that nervous system. And you can stimulate it by lots of different ways. You can do that by humming, by singing, by EFT tapping on those different parts of the nervous system. You can also do breath work. Specific patterns of breathing will activate the calm side of your nervous system. The key indicator here is that when you shallow breathe, it actually puts you into the sympathetic side of your nervous system. But when you deep breathe, and when your exhale is longer than your inhale, that signals to your nervous system that you're safe, and it will switch into the parasympathetic side, or the rest and digest side of your nervous system. So it's a deep breath in, a slight hold, and a very long exhale. And when you do that 3 to 6, maybe as many as 10 times, if you need that many times, usually 3 to 6 does it, you'll feel a settling in, a sense of calm. And that's when you know that the parasympathetic side, the rest side of your nervous system, is activated. Other things you can do is meditate, pray, exercise, humming. Humming will stimulate the vagus nerve. Taking a warm bath, wrapping up in a warm blanket, looking out at nature, they call that green spaces, or at water. When you live near water and near green spaces and spend time in them, naturally your body will have a sense of safety and well-being. Why? Because you didn't create yourself. You were created. You're part of creation. And when you're out in nature, that is going to be where our nervous system is going to be connected to the rest of creation and be able to settle down. Okay, there's lots of ways to stimulate your vagus nerve. If you give yourself something to look forward to, for example, if you know that at the end of the day you're going to have some calm time to rest and take a nice warm bath, if you enjoy that, but put something in that you enjoy. When you do that, then it's able to give you something to look forward to, and just having something to look forward to can be regulating for your nervous system. Okay, so the question is your nervous system regulated? Am I going to food because my nervous system is dysregulated? So one example of this is when we're busy, busy, busy. From the moment that you wake up, you're taking care of other people in your family. You're hurried off to work. You're hurried off to do this and that and the other. And you don't actually take intentional pauses in your day to be able to exist without justification of doing something, but that your existence is enough, and existing is in of itself a worthy thing. If you're busy, 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 then what happens as women is that we go, go, go all day long, and then the end of the day comes, or the afternoon comes, and our body is overworked, overstimulated, hasn't had proper pauses or breaks, is moving at a pace in which we were just not evolved, have not evolved yet to handle. I believe that our human brain is not evolved to the place where it can handle the constant stimulation that comes through us at our phone. Even when we travel somewhere, it used to be that we would walk there or we would ride a horse there. There was a process to traveling. Now we get in our car and we move and things pass by us so quickly. Our nervous system is not as a species at a place where it can handle this type of stimulation. So we tend to get overstimulated, and our nervous system we need to specifically have ways to regulate ourselves. All of these activities can be done preemptively. So an example of this happening is when we're busy, 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 and we don't take any pauses throughout the day to re-regulate. Sitting and chewing food without distraction is also one way to regulate your nervous system. Okay, the first E in need is established habit. Maybe you're feeling an urge to eat food simply because you're in the habit of having food at this time or location or in the present scenarios. This type of food urge is a result of just leftover patterning that used to serve you, but that you are actually outgrowing. Some examples of this would be every time you sit in a certain chair and look at a screen, you in the past have eaten. That you eat, watch screens, and sit in that chair. Therefore, if you put your body in that same position, in that same room, with that same activity, it makes sense that then your brain is going to send you an urge to go eat, because that is the pattern in which your brain is used to operating. Your brain will always try to get you to stay within what is used to doing. Okay, so it's going to send you urges to continue on in the path that you have walked before. In order to, instead of just acting on this urge and eating, you can if you want to, of course, but if you don't want to be eating, then I would recommend that you, if possible, put yourself in a new physical location, meaning shifting the way that your body is positioned, or the actual location. Going to a different room can really trigger or signal to your brain to not eat the food. Or there's actually a very specific process. It's a 4-step method that I'm not going to actually teach in this podcast, but I will teach in future podcasts. That's a proven method that deconditions food urges. So if it's just from habit, then using this specific method, which I call the feel method, is really effective. The third E is entertainment. Okay? This is when you're seeking variety, fun, or something to look forward to doing. You're needing a break from the ordinary or mundane, and so you're looking to get that variety or fun from food. My recommendation is to instead plan events and activities or social interactions, learn new information or hobbies, and then seek out creative outlets in art, music, writing, books or book clubs or other. Or watch a movie. Those are the purposes of movies. Sometimes we just want to feel different emotions than what we're used to feeling all day long, and movies are great for that. Travel, meeting up with friends, or community interaction. These are great forms of entertainment when they're not misused or overused. All of these. We need variety in our life, and we need to seek it through means in which there isn't negative effects on the other side. When our main form of entertainment is eating, then what happens is that we get effects from repeating that activity too often. Maybe The negative effects would be things such as indigestion, or feeling out of control with food, or disengaging from life. People who tend to hide and eat and get all of their needs met through food, or at least they try to get their needs met through food. Here's the thing: is it's not very effective. Food is very effective at nourishing our bodies, but it's not very effective at meeting all of these other needs. It's not great at regulating our nervous system. It can distract us from a dysregulated nervous system. A good nutritious meal when we're actually hungry can be regulating, but outside of that, we're really misusing the purpose of food. Okay, and then the last one, which is the D, this is a deficiency in the feeling of your human needs. This is when you're seeking to get your innate human needs met. These needs that every human being has are things such as to be able to love, to express love, to feel loved, to feel accepted, to feel validated, understood, worthy, connected, and included. You may be feeling lonely, unappreciated, unworthy, or disconnected. So going to food will not fill your need, your innate human needs. It will distract you from it, but it will never actually fully fill it. When you're lonely, you actually need connection. If you feel unworthy, you actually need validation and acceptance. Food cannot do that for us. So instead of this, I want you to instead connect with God through prayer or through study, connect with friends, family, groups with shared focus, finding safe relationships, healthy bonds, and then also practicing emotional awareness, such as including thought work, self-compassion, self-kindness, self-acceptance. Volunteering and not serving others can be really helpful in getting our human needs met. Okay? So here's an example of this. When I was a mother, well, I'm still a mother, but when I was a mother with a bunch of young kids, I have kids ranging from age 20 to age 7 right now, but when they were all young, I would get touched a lot, and there'd be lots of noise all the time. And by the end of the day, I would be tapped out. My nervous system would be fried. I didn't want to be touched. I didn't want to hear anything. I wanted to escape. So I would not only have nervous system dysregulation, but I also needed some connection with other people, because raising these small kids can be isolating at different stages in that process. And so there were times where I felt like I need human connection. Or because kids aren't always validating or expressing appreciation, I felt unappreciated at times. Overworked, right? So I had human needs that weren't being met. And so what I would do is I would wait until the kids went to bed, or in the afternoon, I would start eating in efforts of trying to distract myself from the uncomfortable emotions of loneliness, of unappreciation, these types of unmet human needs. So what I want you to realize from all of this is that if you're having food urges that happen when you're not actually truly hungry, not true physical hunger cues, but when you're actually having when you're having emotional hunger, I want you to instead assess, what is it that I actually need? Is my nervous system dysregulated? Is this just an established habit? Am I seeking entertainment, variety, fun? Am I having a deficiency in some of my core human needs? Am I feeling disconnected? Am I needing to feel validated, accepted, or understood, or worthy? These types of things? And then I encourage you to seek out the proper means to get these needs met. So when Jesus, during the story of the woman at the well, right? This woman has to go through great effort to walk. And this particular woman, the Samaritan woman, she had to go out to the well when others weren't around. So she had to go out there at inconvenient times, probably in the heat of the day, and to then carry water back to where she lived. This was a lot of effort that she had to go through. And Jesus says to her, if you had the water that I offer you, you would never thirst again. And her response is, give me of that water. When we are constantly seeking to get our needs met through food, this is only distracting us from actually fully getting them met. So, in a theological sense, in our relationship with God, when we go to the world to get our needs met, it results in sin. When we try to go to food to get our needs met, it also results in disconnection from ourselves and from others when we continually do it over and over and over. And especially when we think that us doing this is a evidence that we are broken or that we need to hide. It's actually evidence that we're human. And so, in all this to say, I would encourage you, when you're having an urge to eat, a desire to eat, and you're not actually hungry, lean in. What is it that I need? What I actually need. And then it's just a matter of making a strategy to solve for that need, getting that need actually properly filled. And you can do this by the different things that I recommended and also with God. Okay? Now, in all of this, I want to encourage you to check the show notes for links to my websites and other content that I offer. Please share this podcast with others. Leave reviews. It helps the mission of this podcast to grow. Women were not sent here to think about food and losing fat, but to thrive and create and live without God's plan for them. Live with God's plan for them.